All right, I'm going to introduce or ask Shirley Kane, Elder Shirley Kane, to introduce herself. She will be giving us the blessing for tonight's conversation. Shirley?
Oh, miigwech means thank you in my language. Mashkasi koi indigenicas, migizido dem, misquagami wizage gening dujava. What I said is my English name is, my spirit name is Sweetgrass Woman. I'm from the Eagle Clan and I'm from the Red Lake Nation. Before I say the blessing, I want to do a land acknowledgement to acknowledge Mother Earth and all her inhabitants that have occupied her since time immemorial. I want to take time right now to acknowledge, defer, and show respect to the original inhabitants of this land, Mother Earth, who are from the Dakota and Anishinaabe nations. Indigenous people took care and showed reverence for our Nimama Aki, or Mother Earth, as we call her. And Indigenous people also believe she's very sacred to us as she takes care of us as well. As the original caretakers, we must always love and care for her and for water. In return, she nurtures and sustains us with water to live, plants to eat, trees to help us breathe, and herbs to help us heal. Most importantly, she provides space for us to live on. Indigenous people also utilize animals such as deer, buffalo, and fish who sacrifice their lives so we can live. In Minnesota, some of our people also harvest manomen, we call it in my language, or wild rice, to feed their families. Some people also tap maple syrup or maple sap from the maple tree in the spring to make maple syrup or maple cakes to feed their families. Anishinaabe people say chimigwich, or big thank you to them for helping us to live our lives in a good and healthy way. We must not forget to show mutual respect, reverence, and humility towards Nimama Aki, including all her original inhabitants, who include people, plants, animals, air, and water. When Anishinaabe people take something from Nimama Aki, we always offer a sema, or traditional tobacco, in a prayerful way, and we tell her, Chimigwich, big thank you. And we also thank the spirit of that animal, plant, roots, water, rock, or anything that we take from her. We always should remember, never take more than you need, and also, or things that you would like to give away, or you can use for that particular year. So every year I go and harvest sage, and when I harvest the sage, I never take more than I need. We also have a reciprocal relationship with her and all of our relatives, whether they're plants or animals, because we love and care for each other. In our language, we say to Nimama Aki, or Mother Earth, and all our other relatives, Gizaga in Apiji, which means I love you a lot. So I'm gonna say a prayer too right now. And what I do is I use, we call it kinnikinnick, and I call it a sema. And it's traditional tobacco. We harvest it from the red willow tree. Geshimani do mashkasi koyejinikazo migizido den, iskagami zaga gening and dunjava. Geshimani do, I ask for prayers in a kind and humble way for all of our relatives that are hurting in any way. Special prayers, Geshimani do, for our babies, our infants, our toddlers, our youth, and our teens. Geshimani do, I ask for prayers for all of our babies in a kind and humble way. And I say special prayers, Geshimani do, for the ones that are using in any way. Special prayers for all of our caretakers, the ones who are taking care of our babies. And special prayers for our aunties and uncles and grandmas and grandpas and all of our relatives who care for the babies. And I say special prayers and Geshimani do, and also miigwech, to thank you to all the helpers, the ones who are counselors and case managers and nurses and doctors, all the law enforcement people and first responders who come upon our people and find them like that. Geshimani do. I say miigwech to them for all their goodness and all the love that they have for us when they're taking care of our relatives. And I say miigwech to Geshimani do for our people that are wanting to go into treatment, and the ones that are in detox, and the ones that are unsheltered and living outside. I say special prayers for our relatives. And I say special prayers, Gishamaidu, for all of the people here today, Miigwech, for all of the people and all that they do to help our people in a kind and humble way, Gishamaidu. And I say prayers for Nimama Aki again, and Miigwech to her from Mother Earth for all that she bestows upon us. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for this day. I'm grateful for my health, and grateful for all the people you bring into my life. I say Miigwech, thank you for everything. Gishimanidu, Miigwech, oh, and Dinaway Maganag, all my relatives. Okay.
Miigwech, Elder Shirley Kane. I know now you're going to talk a little bit about kind of the relationship of, the system to this fentanyl crisis. Any words you'd like to give would be really important to start off our conversation.
Yes, you bet. It's this issue. It's part of what I do in my job, my 8 to 5 or whatever they want to call it, my day job. And I've been working on this issue for most of my career. I come from that's the Red Lake Nation. It's in northern Minnesota. I grew up there, and then I went away to school, and then I came to the Twin Cities area and have lived here for many, many years. But I've also gone to other areas and done other work with some of the tribal folks in other places, other locations. But some of the things that I find universal is sometimes our people have endured unbelievable traumas. And the trauma started around 1492 or thereabouts, after the colonizers came and showed us a different way of life. And because we didn't know in the beginning, all the things, that our people would be exposed to, including diseases and illnesses. And then there was like unbelievable losses.
Yes.
Some of those barriers that have been there are the loss of our language and the loss of our culture and the loss of our land. And also, like, both of my parents were in boarding schools. My mother was in a government boarding school and my dad was in a Catholic boarding school. And when they were in those schools, they were severely punished or they were beaten. And a lot of them were beaten for speaking their language. So when my dad, when he was raising us, he didn't teach us our language. So I think it was because he didn't want us to be hurt because we would speak our language. Mm-hmm. So I do know a little bit, I say Bangi Tago, that means a little bit. So I know a little bit enough to be dangerous. Just kidding. But and so here's the other piece. We've had unbelievable barriers. Mm-hmm. Some of the barriers are, not just the traumas, but some of us have had adverse childhood experiences too. Mm-hmm. Where, and I looked at some of the ACEs, because I've been doing ACEs research, because that's part of my job. I research, and I love to research, and I love to find information, and then I put it in my noggin, so I use it later on whenever I can, and I love to share whatever I find. Mm-hmm. So if you ever need anything, let me know, and if I have it, I'll give it to you, because I believe in sharing everything. Mm-hmm. But anyway, some of the barriers too have been like the social determinants of health, which are poverty, lack of adequate housing, safe housing, lack of health care, insurance, and lack of health care, especially on reservation land, because a lot of people that live on the reservations, they have Indian health services. And yes, it is free to natives who live on that land, but it's not the highest quality. Mm-hmm. And they've been sorely underfunded for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And I think this year they received like a small increase, but it's not enough to really it's not adequate to address the unbelievable issues, the health issues
Mm,
of Native people, which is like diabetes, heart disease, cancer. And then also you throw in substance use or
Mm.
substance abuse, and that just kind of makes it, throws it sky high. So, and we've had, I did research on the overdose death rate amongst Native Americans, and we're second highest. Blacks are the highest, and then we're second highest.
mm,
And that's really not, those are not good numbers, and I'm not happy with those numbers. Um, okay, so in spite of the barriers, we has still had some hope, and we have some awesome programming in our communities.
mhm,
We have 11 tribes in Minnesota, and there's a number of urban resources here in this area. We have like the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center, Jules Fairbanks Treatment Center, and MIWRC is for women, and Jules Fairbanks is for men. And they also have the Native American Community Clinic, and they do outpatient, and then Indian Health Board does outpatient as well. And they also have a treatment facility in on the Fond du Lac Reservation. It's called Mishkawazin, and they do, from what I understand, they do sweats and they do talking circles, and they do a lot of different wraparound services. And this coming weekend, they're having a sobriety powwow, which they've had for
mm,
many years. And so what is happening in other locations like White Earth Tribe, they've had a craft class, and they're teaching people how to bead and how to make their regalia and their outfits. And
mm,
so once they go into sobriety and recovery, then they start making their outfits, and then once they start dancing and drumming, they regain that sense of pride and that sense of confidence. So I think in spite of a lot of our barriers, we've had some awesome programming. And then also the spirituality is so important for our
mhm,
people, because it's who we are. That's part of who we are. Because when you think about the medicine wheel is always in a circle,
mhm,
and it goes in four pieces. And one of the pieces on that medicine wheel is spirituality, because you
mm,
have the physical, the mental, and the emotional, and the spiritual. And all those needs need to be addressed for a
mhm,
person to live a balanced life.
mm,
Because if they're not addressed, then we become imbalanced. And I
mm,
think that's what's been happening to Mother Earth too more recently with the climate change, because of the greenhouse gas emissions.
mhm,
We've knocked her off balance, and we're off
mm,
balance because of the climate change. And that's why we've been seeing droughts, and we've been seeing the wildfires coming out of Canada.
mhm,
And we've been seeing tsunamis and earthquakes and hurricanes that were like, they're just like unbelievably big,
mhm,
because Mother Earth is off balance, and our whole, a lot of things have been knocked off balance. So as
mhm,
a community, including all the people here, it just makes my heart feel so good to have different cultures be a part of this, because I think that's what's been prophesized, that when we all come together and we all have the same goal and we all have one mind, we
mhm,
can tackle this, and we can help our people to heal in a good way,
mhm,
using our own cultures and our own spirituality, our own ways of life, and but support each other, and not have that fighting amongst each other, and jealousy,
mhm,
because that's what I've seen in my own community too, is that jealousy. And my brother researched that issue, and he thinks it started during the treaty era,
mhm,
when the federal government passed out annuities and only gave annuities or rations to certain people. And
mhm,
it started the jealousy stuff in our community, and it's just gone on from one generation to the other. And I think it's time we can stop that, and we can
mhm,
support each other in a good way,
mhm,
and say, we're in this together, and we're gonna do something about it together, and heal in a humble way, and heal in a kind way. And
mhm,
that's why I like to use that word gizaga, and it means I love you,
mhm,
because we have to love each other and we have to love ourselves,
Mhm.
you know, in order for us to address this fentanyl issue, because it's not just fentanyl, it's a whole bunch of different poly substances that are involved too. And it's because I saw xylazine coming before it got here, because I saw it, and I in all my research I saw it started out in Pennsylvania area, and then it was just a matter of when it got here. And it's really a devastating drug, and it's a devastating consequences. So anyway, I'm helping on a tribe with a first responders grant, and one of the things they're doing is they're doing like PSAs that Mary Sue talked about, having PSAs and having some of that in their language, and putting out those positive messages for our community, and
Nice.
to let our relatives know that we didn't forget them and we didn't stop loving them. We're gonna be here, and we gotta just be here to support in a really kind way. Because I said, you know, to some of my other friends, we're actually putting on a summit coming up August 22nd and 23rd in Fond du Lac on the reservation there. And it's to address the substance use crisis that the Native American community is involved in right now. And so one of the things I'm really pushing for is to have a strategic plan, so we can plan and we can organize and we can do something moving forward together, you know. And then also what I see happening too is with the funding levels, what happens with a lot of those funding places is they only put out so much, and then they make us compete against each other, and then only one or two get it and the rest of them are left with nothing. So we have to figure out how to prioritize this and how to support each other in a good way. Because back in the 1980s in the Twin Cities area here, what a group of Native organizations did is they collaborated together and they figured out how to prioritize the funding.
Beautiful.
And put the needs of the people at the top.
Yes.
That's where I think we need to go back to. So here's another thing too that I didn't want to forget, and I want to bring this up. It's the incarceration rate of Natives and Blacks and all the other groups that are diverse, we have some of the highest rates of people in jails and prisons. And a lot of that is around the institutional racism that happens within the systems. And it's also lack of really strong legal help. I've worked with legal aids. I've worked with legal, you know, in the public defender's office. They have way too much to do and not enough people to do it. And I think that's one of the issues there. It's like triage. It's like a constant, just like pump them out, you know, kind of thing. When we could, I don't know, we have to figure out how to design it so we can really represent our people and then help them get expungements. So some of those charges are taken off the record so they can get good housing and they can get good paying jobs. And some of them could even be really fantastic foster parents, because that Adam Walsh Act, that barred a lot of our people from being foster parents. And so there's a lot we can do together if we come together in a good way and support each other and then hold each other up. And we need more people as legislators, more diverse people. Because we have some good people now, but we need more.
Chi Miigwech, Elder Kane, that was beautiful. I took notes with all your words. They were exactly what I think we all needed to hear. It was a community pep talk, but also that this is about us sticking together and really working together to collaborate and prioritize and strategize. And we sure appreciate your words tonight. Thank you so much. I wish we could hear you all night, actually, Shirley. That people have asked for your contact information in the chat. If you're willing to put that in there, they're all like, we want to talk to her. So I don't know if you'd like to allow people to email, but there's quite an interest in your research and in your wisdom. So thank you so much. And I just, I have the job of moving us forward, but boy, like I said, I would love to listen to Elder Kane really for a long time. But we have one of the fentanyl opioid prevention coordinators from St. Paul, Ramsey County Public Health, here to give like a 5-minute overview of fentanyl 101. But before that, Carmen Robles, who is a co-planner with these town hall meetings, and she has been doing these town hall meetings with the Latino community for years about this crisis. She's just going to quickly go over what our goals are for the conversation tonight. So thank you, Carmen.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mary Sue. Y muchas gracias, Elder Shirley. You filled my heart, like always. So our goals for this conversation were gleaned from our last show, the June 28th, our first session. You, the audience, were kind enough to put your comments on chat, fill out the survey. And what we heard you say was that you wanted multicultural partners to be in the forefront, and you wanted to hear from them. So our goals for this conversation is to uplift and hear from these wonderful multicultural partners about their experiences in the following: the fentanyl crisis and how to raise awareness within our families and networks, how to access Narcan and Narcan training, mental health and suicide, and the role social media plays as a driving force in this crisis. You asked for the relationship to substance use and homelessness. Thank you very much for bringing that to the forefront. And also resources that support family recovery and substance use education. Mary Sue?
Yes, thank you, Carmen. All right, Jesse, I think you're up. Wendy, can I see the next slide, please? Yes, it's Jesse. Jesse Saavedra. He's going to give us a 101 just to catch us all up on what is this fentanyl crisis, what is Narcan, what's naloxone, what's xylazine, all these things that if you haven't been talking about this, which I haven't, is quite eye-opening. So Jesse's going to help us give us the 101. Go for it, Jesse.
Mary Sue, thank you. Carmen, thank you. And Elder Shirley Kane, I appreciate the opening. That's a lot of stuff I'm going to try to cover in 5 minutes, and this could be a whole night conversation. So fentanyl is a synthetic opioid, 50 times stronger than heroin, 100 times more stronger than morphine. There are two types of fentanyl. One's a pharmaceutical fentanyl, and the other is illicitly manufactured fentanyl. Both are synthetic opioids. Fentanyl comes in a liquid and a powder form. Liquid can come in nasal sprays, eye drops, or a dropper onto paper to make it look like those little candies. So a person could buy it like that on a little swab. Some of the names that fentanyl goes by is Dance Fever, Goodfellas, Jackpot, Murder 8, Tango and Cash. These are just a few names that fentanyl goes by. One of the important things that we talk to people about right now is to test your drugs. Out of the syringe exchange that I work at 555 Cedar Street, we talk about taking fentanyl test strips and testing every batch that you buy, mainly to find out if you do not want fentanyl, that you're not using that. Most often, the percentage of drugs that are out there right now are cut with fentanyl. Most of the pills, actually, people that are buying, 6 out of 10 are pressed with fentanyl. The other drug we're seeing a lot of right now too, and Elder Shirley Kane mentioned, was xylazine. Xylazine has been in the community for probably at least 4 years. 2 or 3 years ago, we were hitting people with 12 doses of Narcan or naloxone. And what we're finding out now is because xylazine was in their system, and we were not that aware of what xylazine was. Now we're seeing it more present. Xylazine does also cause wounds. They cause these cuts and sores on a person's body that actually eat down into your bones. So it's another reason to pay attention to all of these drugs if we can. Narcan is not effective for xylazine. So if somebody is shooting up xylazine mixed with, another opioid, the opioid will react to the naloxone, but they might go right back out because of the xylazine in the system. I mentioned naloxone mainly because that is one of the tools that we can use right now to save a person's life. A person that maybe you come across that is gurgling, isn't breathing, isn't talking, isn't moving. Their pupils could be very pinpoint, or their breathing is gurgling. What you might want to do if you come across an individual like that is do some chest compressions. If they don't move, they don't wake up. If you're with somebody, tell them to call 911 as you administer Narcan. Narcan comes in two forms as well. One of them is a nasal spray. That's in the left-hand corner of this slide. And then the other is intermuscular, which is an injectable form that usually comes in a pack of 3 with three vials of 0.4 milliliters of naloxone. Now, all of this is effective for a person that's overdosing with opioids. It's important that all of us know this information and to be able to share it with one another. I'm hoping the individuals on this call tonight, if they're learning something new, or even if they haven't, share it with a family member, share it with a friend. Pick up, Narcan from a syringe exchange, pick up Narcan from the pharmacy. Go to U of M Fairview. They also have naloxone there for free. So it's important to remember that it's available. You don't need a prescription. You don't have to be trained. It's an easy procedure on how to use naloxone. So it's important to take a chance and learn how to do it. Just real quickly about some numbers in Ramsey County. In 2016, there were 6 deaths that were related to synthetic opioids. And these are Ramsey County residents. And then between 2019 and 2021, the numbers rose from 22 in 2019 to 121 in 2021. So these are way too many deaths. One is too many deaths in regards to opioids. And we're getting the opportunity to share so much tonight that, it's going to be hard to take in. But remember, reach out to us, ask us questions, because it's important to understand why we're doing this. Myself, I'm fortunate that xylazine, fentanyl wasn't around when I was using, because if it was, I probably wouldn't be here today. So I think I've covered a lot. There's a lot more that I could cover, but I want to make sure that I'm respectful for other persons that are on this call. And thank you so much for everybody for being here tonight.
Thank you, Jesse. And can you repeat again how people can pick up Narcan or naloxone?
Sure. There is actually a couple sites you can go on. Find naloxone near you. There's knowthedangers.com is one site you can get on. If you wanted to go pick it up in person, you could go to Clinic 555, room 111 at 555 Cedar Street, or the U of M Fairview also has NAP, which we call a naloxone access point. Steve Rumler also has a site that you can get on, and you can either go through a training, virtual training, and then they will mail it to you as well. So there's a lot of community outreach people that are giving it to people if they want it. It is free. It is legal because anybody has a right to carry naloxone now. The FDA has approved the over-the-counter naloxone, so it's another thing in all of our favor. I carry nasal Narcan and I carry IM that's already in syringes. If I run across somebody that I believe maybe has overdose, I'm prepared and ready to try to save a life. And I think, as I mentioned, this is another tool that we are all at our fingertips to use.
Thank you so much, Jesse, for that overview. I really appreciate it. And before we go to our next speaker, Lar, I just wanted to say we heard a story of a nurse practitioner who was meeting with the Somali community and encouraging them to have Narcan on hand. The mother didn't think that was necessary because in the Somali faith, nobody should be having a drug use issue. But the nurse really wanted to make sure that they had Narcan regardless. That next week, her son overdosed. She used Narcan and she saved his life. So really, really powerful how important it is that we all do what Jesse said and try to get us Narcan. And I put in the chat all the ways we can start doing that. And just so you know, we're really working and advocating for even faster and even more convenient ways to do that. So we're going to continue to find ways for everyone to get naloxone and Narcan in their hands as quickly as possible and without barriers. I'm going to now introduce Lar, and he's going to
Mary Sue, just real
yes,
quick.
Wendy.
Do we want folks to save their questions for our speakers to the end? Or if someone puts a question in the chat, would you like to hear that? There was a question for Jesse.
Yeah, why don't you let Jesse answer that question right now? Because I think it's so very important.
Yep. So Jesse, just was a question about the testing strips. So maybe you could just share a little bit about testing strips.
Good.
Yeah.
Good question.
Thank you. Yes, there's a fentanyl test strip that you can get through Steve Rumbler. You can also get it at 555 Cedar Street at the Syringe Exchange because they give them out free. I'll put my contact information in the chat as well because you can contact me and I can get you the fentanyl test strips as well. The xylazine strips are out right now, but we don't know how dependable they really are yet.
Okay.
So there are some clinics using them. There are some, the corrections actually is testing for xylazine there because they're doing MAT, medical assisted therapies or treatments to individuals. So they're using the xylazine test strips there. So if we're finding that they're effective, we're going to end up purchasing some and having them at the Clinic 555 as well. Steve Rumbler has talked a little bit about possibly having them along with the fentanyl test strips. It's the same kind of strip that you're seeing right now that, regarding fentanyl, same kind of method of testing the xylazine. Good question.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for the question. All right, Lar, one of the things we learned from our first conversation is the community really wanted to know, how do we talk to our kids about this? And Lar, if you could introduce yourself to the community and then give us a little bit of information, we sure appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mary. Hello, everyone. My name is Lar, and I work with Korean Organization of Minnesota. And today I will be talking about the signs and symptoms that people are experiencing when they're using, and I will talk about where do you can access it. So before I start off my presentation, I just want to say that as parents and even for teachers, it is hard to recognize and know if a person is whether they're using or not, because the symptoms are very they look very tired and if they look sick and they don't know if whether they're using drug or they're just sick from home. So I just want to say that, but there are external visible signs that you can recognize as a parent if you're concerned or wondering if your kids are using or not. I will be breaking up my presentation in 3 sections. The first section will be the symptoms and signs when they're using, just using. And the second one will be symptoms and signs when they are experiencing withdrawal. Then I will move to the symptoms and signs when they are overdosing. So for when they're using and they're not going through withdrawal or overdosing, some signs that you can tell is that they have very dirty fingernails, and it's also different from user to user. Some users have very clean nails, but we also see that a lot of youth who are using fentanyl or they do have very dirty nails, and that's because they will crunch up the drug, put it in the tinfoil and smoke it up, and they'll get the stickiness and the flames in their nails. Another sign is that they frequently use a bathroom. So they go to bathroom a lot, and this happens a lot in school setting and even at home. They will go to bathroom will ask for bathroom break, go in there and just start smoking fentanyl, and they also take long bathroom break. So you can also recognize that. And some other symptoms that they are experiencing will be confusion. They're not in their sober mind. So they're very confused, they're sleeping, they're dizzy, they're nauseous, vomiting, they have cold and clammy skin, and they also have dilated pupil. And that's when they're using, But when they do decide to stop using the drug, it is also very hard for them to just stop it, right? Sometimes we're wondering if why do our children just stop it? Why can't they just go seek treatment and stop this thing? It is very hard because the symptoms that they are going through, that they have to experience stopping a drug, is it's just very uncomfortable and very hard for them. And that's because when they stop, they often experience muscle pain and sore, and sometimes like the itchiness. And so when you talk to a client who are experiencing withdrawal, like they like you tend to like they like massage their hands like itchy, do this with their fingers. They also you can and that's internal, but they also do it externally, like so you can also recognize that visibly. Another one that you can recognize is the fatigue and yawning. So if they look tired and in a conversation that you are having with them, they'll be, let's say in that 1 minute, they'll be yawning like 4 different times. They'll just be yawning a lot. And they're also sweating. So you can look at the skin, whether when they're talking to you, whether they're sweating or not, right? Like whether they're doing this, yawning or sweating or not, you know, and those are the outside visible signs that you can see and recognize, but there are other like internal toughness that they have to go through when they stop the drug, such as abdominal pain, nauseous, loss of appetite and sleeping, restlessness. They just been walking up and down the room because, you know, their mind is just on that drug. The craving is high, and they have to go through all these things in their body. They're experiencing fever, diarrhea, and so much more. The next one is symptoms of overdosing, and this is very important to recognize because at this time, if you have Narcan and you recognize all these things, you should be prepared with Narcan or call 911. And the first one will be slur speech. They don't know how to like sound word out anymore at that point. Like if they just like very high and very into it at that point, like the drug is like working so hard on their body. They have cold skin, they have difficult breathing. So oftentimes like they'll just be like sleepy and tired, slur speech, and they just like breathe very slowly until like they just passed out. Confusion, very extreme. Like they'll just be confused. They don't know where they're at. They don't know what they're doing. Difficult walking. Again, dilated pupils, sleepiness. Like they just want to go. They're just gonna pass out in any minute. And when they experience all these things, and you start to see a change in skin color, usually purple, and that's when you really need to know to call the police or like put in that Narcan, because this usually means that this person is passing out, they're in a coma state, and they're no longer breathing. So yeah, those are the 3 sections for the symptoms and signs that you need to look out for if you're concerned or just wondering. And for where and how do they access the drugs, there are many ways, but for this section, for this presentation, I will just break it up into 4 big ways that where they access the drug. The first one is from a drug dealer. They can reach out to a drug dealer to go pick it up, and or for them to drop it off just at any time. That this drug is a crisis. Like youth can access this drug very fast and very easy. Second is friends. If they have friends that have it, that they can access it that way. And some youth, they were introduced to fentanyl, to these drugs by their friends, you know, peer pressure, and just into doing this thing, and now they're addicted. Family. We also have some clients where it's their big older brother that provide the drugs for them. It's their older sister, it's their girlfriend or boyfriend, or it's their parents, you know, family. And lastly, the main big one would be gang. If a youth is in a gang, it is very we have a very high chance of that's where they get it from. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lar. Thank you so much. Also, isn't it true that there's such easy access on social media to, like, I heard somebody said that Snapchat will come in and talk to you about take this pill for anxiety, and what there's a 6 out of 10 chance that pill is laced with fentanyl.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, we also heard of that. Like social media plays a huge role, and online, like internet itself, like people could just like get it from the internet, and yeah, it's just scary. Scary.
It is. Thank you so much, Lar. I'm going to move on now to Miriam Rolby from Children's Minnesota. She's going to talk to us. Oh, she'll introduce herself, but tell us a little bit about how do we talk to kids about this? Because as Lar was saying, you know, kids are learning from their friends. They're learning from peer pressure, from even family. How do we talk about that? So Miriam, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Mary Sue. Appreciate it. And Lar, I concur with everyone else. That was very important knowledge to have and some insight that's new that I learned as well. I am Miriam Roby. I'm the clinical director of equity and inclusion at the Children's Hospital, both campuses, St. Paul and Minneapolis. I am a medical provider as well. I work in the inpatient mental health unit at Children's, and I was graciously offered by Mary Sue and Wendy and Carmen to join the panel to have a discussion with all of you about how do you talk with your kids about fentanyl. And a little context, in 2021, nearly 7,000 and this is both children and adults fatally overdosed on fentanyl. The biggest spike in overdose, and this was the largest known registered deaths in the country's history. There was also, if we were to bring it to the context of kids, 1,557 pediatric deaths were from fentanyl, 40 infants, and 93 children between the signs of 1 and 4 died because of the opioid. And this was according to the study. This leads into my conversation. How do we talk to your child about fentanyl? You know, the main thing is that you have to, and I'm really going to make this paramount, you have to talk to your child about fentanyl. You have to get past the point of thinking that, you know, you want to withhold information, as Lar so poignantly mentioned, and also Mary Sue had highlighted in her question. They have access to social media, their peers at school, gangs, information from just on the street. And what would be so beneficial is if the resourced information would come from you. So it would be better to have that as a primary source of information versus them receiving it tertiary. So where do you go? You want to make sure to explain that what fentanyl is, and using some of the dialogue that Lar had presented would be key in that. Why is it dangerous? As he had also mentioned, the overdose that could lead to death. Some of the side effects that occur from that, going into a coma. Sometimes when you have a decreased respiratory drive, there's decrease of oxygen to the brain, right? And in that, even if you survive that, there may be critical changes to your brain that you may not come back from. So it's really pertinent to try to highlight some of those different things that could occur. Start the conversation with your child. Have a very transparent, open conversation with your child. Sit them down and, you know, have some of the discussion on, you know, what their surrounding are. Who are the friends that they're hanging around? What are some of the after school activities that they may or may not be participating in, and just really encourage them to have that level of transparency with you. You have to lead with a statement of non-judgment, right? The key is that your child needs to feel that they can come to you and have this discussion where they're not going to feel judged. They're not going to feel that you may argue with them, put them down. It has to be a really calm type of conversation, and to make sure that they feel that they can open up to you. And then you also want to, as Lar so poignantly mentioned, that you want to recognize those key signs and symptoms with your child. You know, a lot of us, and I have an almost 17-year-old myself, what we do is that, you know, we think we know our child, right? And they may hold themselves off into into their bedroom, and they're having conversations with their kids, you know, their friends and things of that nature. And we don't want to really invade in their privacy. We want to give them that, you know, a little bit of a extension so that they can, you know, be more independent. But this is where you actually want to be a little bit more engaged with your child. Kind of look at some of those signs and symptoms that Lar had mentioned: the dirty fingernails, the sweating, the dilated pupils. Is there some of their mannerisms? Have they changed? Are they up all night? Actually go in and take a peek. Are they locking doors? Is there a level of really discretion where they're trying to kind of isolate them or isolate themselves from you? So it's really key to have these real visual cues, also some of the any other cues such as subjective verbalization, and then lean on their friends. I want to go into the standpoint, we need to know who our children are hanging around, right? And get to know the children, get to know their parents, get to know the after school community that they may be participating, know that a little bit more so that it's not something that would be of surprise to you. So I hope that helps a little bit, but from the conversations that we're having with our children in the inpatient mental health unit, that's some of the things that they have mentioned to us. And what I have found as an inpatient mental health provider is that these children really do want to open up. It's rare that I have someone that doesn't want to. If you actually take the time to sit down and listen, truly listen to what they have to say. So,
Wow. Miriam, beautiful. Again, wish we could talk with you all longer, but we're going to keep moving on. And Lara, it's up to you. There was a question about your contact information. If you want to give that, put it in the chat. Wendy, you had a question before we move on?
There's another quick question in the chat, whether it's for Miriam or for one of the other speakers so far tonight. It just asks, how do the people use the drugs? Is it true that people are lacing marijuana with fentanyl and xylazine? Does anyone know?
This is Jesse.
Yes.
They're not lacing marijuana with xylazine, but they are using foil to cook weed that is laced with fentanyl. Because what happens if for example, they roll a joint and there's xylazine, it burns off. It'll burn off at a high temperature. But if you see foil laying around, that means that they're just taking in the fumes of the marijuana and whatever it's laced with. So they're not overheating the fentanyl itself. So yes, it is being done.
Okay, that's really helpful. Wendy, can you also, when you give your piece about social media, I know you had an online resource that people can go to after this conversation to learn all the different ways that the social media has taught kids how to hide their use. So anyway, I'm going to give this over to you, Wendy, to take it to the next stage.
Hey, everybody. So we're going to skip.
Wait, I'm sorry, I gotta ask you to start your video, and I was trying to spotlight you and now I screwed you up. Just a second, Wendy. Can you start your video again? I want to spotlight you. Okay, here we go.
Oh,
thank you.
There you go.
There you are.
So one of the things that I just wanted to share about social media and how that interrelates with mental health and also with substance use is this whole concept that there's a new drug dealer in town, right? And the new drug dealer is our kids' cell phones. And so they're moving a lot of times, from the street corners, it says to a cell phone near you. This is an interesting video you can watch a little bit later, but there are emojis and keywords which will cause certain things to pop up on our kids' feeds, right? And some of the keywords might be something like a kid's talking about depression or anxiety. So it's not even that a kid is looking for the drug itself, but there are other things that are then causing, those are the keywords that are causing drug dealers to then be able to prey on kiddos.
Wow.
So one of the things that you see there in the picture, Snapchat is an accomplice to my murder, forever 14, forever 16, forever 17. Behind them, those yellow ones are definitely talking about kiddos who've died from overdoses and from accessing drugs through Snapchat. Behind them, you might not be able to see that, but they were saying that being cyberbullied led to that as well. So please, if you have a chance when we send this out, watch that video. We won't spend time doing that tonight. But although we highlighted Snapchat in that last slide, just really recognizing that it's on all of the major social media platforms. And it's not just the drugs. So think about that the fatal dose of fentanyl can contaminate any drug or supplement, including products that are made to look like vitamins. So we really just have to get that message out that if you didn't get it from a pharmacy, if you didn't get it from your local Target, right? It's not okay to stick it in your mouth and swallow it. Don't do that. So while social media can have some positive effects on teens, like connecting with friends and family, and especially for kids who are in the LGBTQ community who might be feeling extremely isolated, children who are struggling with their mental health, who feel like nobody else understands them, social media can be a place of community where they feel that hug, where they can reach out and talk to somebody when they're, in bed at night and feeling anxious and sad, and they hop on, and that's where they're finding a connection. Sometimes that can be good. But the Surgeon General has posted a warning because even outweighing that good has been the evidence that it is really harmful to our children's mental health. And a big piece of that is related to this interconnection, right? The interconnection between our children's mental health and well-being, substance use, and social media use. So we've already heard Miriam talked a little bit about mental health red flags and danger signs. And I know that Laura talked about some of the signs and symptoms that you might see in substance use or in withdrawal. The one thing that I'll point out is that so many of those are similar, right? So when we're looking at the signs and the symptoms that are red flags or danger signs for a mental health challenge or disorder, oftentimes those are similar signs or symptoms that might be related to some challenges we're experiencing because we're overusing social media or because we're using a substance. There are a few that are on here that are very specific to substance use, things like the track marks or, the picking. But honestly, you might see some of the picking from anxiety disorder. So all of those things are interrelated. We don't want to assume. I had a teacher once who said, assuming makes a, first three letters out of you and me. And that is what we always tell to our kids, right? Is we don't want to assume, be a detective, pay attention, but don't assume. Ask questions. So what can we do? We just encourage everybody to keep those lines of communication open, very much like what Miriam was talking about. Be curious, and if something doesn't feel right, trust your gut. Watch for changes, talk to your child, contact a professional. Try this out. I'm not saying it's easy. I have 4 kids. My oldest is 30 and on down from there. I know this probably would not have gone over well for them either, but if you can model it yourself, try having a rule where there is no phones, tablets, etc., 1 hour for bed, not having that in their room. Not only will that improve their mental health and well-being and their sleep, but it's also going to keep them off social media at night when they're alone in there. You can use software for blocking and monitoring and filtering and checking web browsers and histories and social media. Monitor deliveries to your home. So you know, Amazon delivers to us all the time. I don't know about you guys, but I get deliveries here at my house all the time. It's so easy for your kids to be on social media and to be able to access drugs, and they're just delivered to the house. So keep an eye on those things. If you think that your teen might be using, make sure that they don't have drugs available. So very similarly to when we say that we're worried that a child might be experiencing suicidal ideation, and we say, make sure all the sharp objects are out of the way, make sure that we're, you know, locking up anything that the child might have access to. Similarly, if you're really worried that your child might be using drugs, you're going to have to do some searching. And that means looking in their room, going to the backpack, looking in the car. And this is not the time to worry about invasion of privacy. I think Miriam talked about that as well. We try to respect privacy whenever we can, but when health and life is in danger, then we kind of toss that out the window. The last little piece that I'll share is if you suspect that your child is under the influence, that's a different story. So if you suspect your child is under the influence, not using or, you know, not in withdrawals, but currently under the influence, that is a 911 call or a trip to the emergency department. We can't say that enough. And that's because you don't know how intoxicated your child is. Be careful not to be handling anything that you think might be fentanyl. There's some messages about that there too. And then this is the long list that Mary Sue was talking about earlier, lots of links. But here is where you can find everything. So if you're on our website and you pop, which is rccmhc.org, you come on over to the bulletin board, and then you open that up. And we have one section that is here on substance use. And there's another section down a little bit further called parenting. So in the parenting section, this is where you're going to find a lot of the information about social media use. You're going to see some of those different emojis and things that kids are using that might be a keyword for fentanyl and accessing drugs. And then here in the youth substance use section, this is also a spot where you're going to find some extra resources, where to find the Narcan and the naloxone and the testing strips, some videos, short videos you can watch. But the one that Mary Sue was talking about is this one. This is the video for parents. It's called Hidden in Plain Sight. And it just gives examples of how kids might be hiding drugs in their bedroom. Just some examples for you there. I'm going to pop back over to, hopefully, now I've messed it all up, Mary Sue.
You'll get it. It's okay. You're doing
There it is. All right.
Okay, Wendy, thank you
Yes.
so much. That was wonderful. And I don't know, is Sergeant Beverly Rodriguez in this space right now? Because one of the things the survey asked is from our first meeting, our town hall meeting, people wanted to know the connection between homelessness and fentanyl. And Sergeant Beverly Rodriguez was invited to come tonight. If she is here, can you unmute? And if not, we'll move to Jesus, who will talk about his community medical services that are opening mid-August. Jesus, why don't you begin? And then if Sergeant Rodriguez comes in, we'll
Start here. I'm in here, Mary Sue.
start here. Okay, well, then
She's here.
we're gonna ask you to do your little overview.
Sorry, I jumped in so you knew she was here because we're both here.
Oh, wonderful. All right, go for it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Rodriguez.
I'll make it quick for everyone. My name's, hello everyone. First of all, my name's Beverly Rodriguez. I work for Metro Transit Police Department, and I oversee our homeless action team, also known as HAT. So just a little background, the unit's in charge of helping those experiencing homelessness on our transit system, and those using on the trains and buses, using them for shelter and to sleep at night. The unit was created in 2018, and since its inception, we've housed over, actually close to 500 adults and children. We're also the only police department in the state of Minnesota that offers our own housing vouchers. They're just like Section 8 housing. So majority of our time is spent helping those who qualify for our voucher get into an apartment. We help them with filling out paperwork, getting it submitted, and helping them find an available apartment. We also assist with helping them move into their new apartment. So we're very busy trying to help those experiencing homelessness on transit get out of homelessness and get into some place where they can call it home. Recently, with the increase in drug use, fentanyl being on top, we've seen an increase in overdoses as well. I would say maybe at least 80% of our overdose calls have a connection to homelessness. And most of our overdoses happen on our trains or buses. I've noticed that a lot of the overdoses happen on our platforms, trains, and buses because they know we have cameras. We respond right away. We can get them back. So all our cops are trained with Narcan, and so they have the nasal Narcan. So as soon as we see someone on camera that's been down for a bit, our cops respond immediately, administer Narcan, and for the majority of most of the calls, we can get them back right away. Otherwise, EMS is extremely responsive, so they'll take over once they get there. Like I mentioned, most of the time we can get them back. The struggle that we face, our unit, the HAT unit faces, is that fentanyl and the drug addiction, it's just taking over. So it's very hard to house individuals now because they're chasing the drug, and even just finding them on the street, they're out somewhere, high somewhere, and we can't find them to get paperwork, to get them to their units. It's just very hard to get a hold of them. And not only that, the other difficult part is once we do house them, it's hard to keep them housed because they fall back, they relapse, they go back. So quick story, we housed a boyfriend and girlfriend maybe a couple months ago now, and I just saw them at the homeless encampment in South Minneapolis. And I asked them, I said, hey, what are you guys doing here? You guys have an apartment? And they're, oh, we're just visiting friends. But they're chasing that drug, and they're chasing their friends that have the drugs, and that's all they do all day. And that's just taking over. It's taking it over. And it's really hard for me now to do my job because this drug, it's just everywhere now. And so what I'm trying to do is my unit is just doing outreach, trying to get more drug and alcohol treatment providers to come out and do outreach with me, to get on the trains, to get on the platforms, and reach out to as many folks as possible that need this treatment. So I get out at least once or twice a week with my team, and we'll go out for a couple hours, and we hit up different platforms, different train stations, and we're out there trying our best. But it's just, like I mentioned, it's really difficult to get them in somewhere. And a lot of times they need to want to, with these treatment programs, they need to want to change. They need to want to get this treatment. And so it's really hard. And another one is we have seen an increase in youth homelessness as well. And so lots of youth out there that are also using. So it goes hand in hand, that homelessness and using. So it's making our job a lot more difficult now too. So I'm just hoping, I'm always reaching out to different organizations to see what they have. I'm not an expert in fentanyl or any of that, but I know it's hitting my community pretty bad. And I'm just trying to get more organizations that have more experience with that out with me to do outreach.
Yes.
Sergeant Rodriguez, can I say a couple things?
Sure, go ahead.
So I work under Sergeant Rodriguez. The couple things that I wanted to mention is getting them houses, like she said. Then they end up bringing all the individuals that they were hanging with into the housing, which ends up getting them kicked out of the housing. And the other thing is they're not always getting the mental health piece addressed along with the addiction piece. You have to treat both pieces for there to be a success rate. And the third thing is, one of the biggest things when we take someone to the hospital or wants to go, if they can't have a cigarette there, they don't want to go there. Now, if that's a cigarette over a drug, I'd rather have them have that cigarette.
Amen.
Yeah, that's all I got for you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions if they're available.
Do you know if they're still trying to over in South Minneapolis? Because at one point in time, they were talking about fencing off a specific area for them to have the tent encampments. Or are they still putting up the barricades to prevent them from doing so?
Yeah, so MnDOT has been putting fencing all over their property, so it's usually like the medians and the side of the freeway and stuff like that. MnDOT has been putting fencing to keep them off. I think there's a lot of talk on having some sort of community for the homeless, but no one's really taken action on that. And there's a lot of things that come into play, because if you notice, when encampments start growing, a lot of criminal activity starts to happen as well. So there's stabbings, shootings, more drugs being, because all these dealers are going, they know where to go to sell their drugs as well. So
Agreed. I know, because I've got family that live over in Little Earth, and I mean it's gotten to the point where like I physically watched the Parks and Rec people remove people even from like the sideways and stuff because they were too high, and I've watched them administer Narcan just because they don't have anywhere safe, so they feel why, you know, that's a lot of them. Like we've tried to go over there and tried to feed them and those kinds of things. It's just it's hard because they want the help, but they don't know how to go about it.
Yeah, and that's the challenge that we face too, because even myself as a police officer, like I'm in charge of clearing out encampments, but I'm also trying to help them at the same time. And so it's that fine line. Like I go in with services, they refuse the services, and then obviously if there's any criminal activity going on in front of me, I have to handle that too. So it's hard trying to be, you know, that good person trying to help them, and then also enforcing the law. So it's like I mentioned, it's making it very difficult for us and the Homeless Action Team unit.
Thank you, Sergeant Rodriguez. I think this could be a whole town meeting on its own, but I wanted to have a little time for Jesus to talk a little bit about some medical services that are coming into our community soon. If you have more questions for Sergeant Rodriguez, please put them in the chat. We'll have a little more time for conversation in a little bit, but let's get Jesus to speak about the medical services, the community medical services program coming up. Jesus, thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you for having me. Sergeant Rodriguez, I imagine that you and I are probably going to be working together a lot, it sounds like. So, but yeah, so we are community medical services. We're an OTP, which is an opioid treatment program, providing medication-assisted treatment to individuals with an OUD, so opioid use disorder. We also do some dual diagnosis with psych services and primary care, but our main focus is that OUD diagnosis. We're very fortunate to where I've had the luxury of the last year kind of really learning the landscape of Minneapolis, just kind of system partners, where the needs are, the underserved demographics. And right now we're getting ready to launch 2 clinics, one in Roseville and then one in Minneapolis. So very excited there. We'll be offering services from as early as 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. And our big thing is we want to make sure any individual that decides that they are ready in that moment to start the recovery process, that they can come in for an intake and start their journey with us, because we understand that having to schedule an intake, right, to come in for treatment and to start that tomorrow may be too late. So we do everything on demand. We want clients to be able to come in, start their services with us, get some one-on-one counseling, get some group counseling, some case management, peer services. So like all the services that you guys provide, we want to make sure that they are very active in the community. They know how to get Medicaid, they know how to get housing, food vouchers, transportation, all of those services we want to make sure that they can kind of have access to, not just the medication part of it. The other big thing with that is barriers, right? We all know that individuals face barriers on a daily basis, whether it is insurance, housing, food, or all those things we just listed off. So we do whatever we can to remove those barriers, whether it is you don't have insurance, right? We want you to come in and we will work with you to find insurance, and we have some grant funding through Minnesota. So we will kind of cover services that way. The big one is, as we are on this conversation specifically with Multicultural, is undocumented individuals. We provide services to every single individual, and undocumented is part of that. And we work with them as well to make sure that they are getting the resources they need to make sure that that's never a barrier for them. I know we spent a little bit of time on adolescents, which was great. We are licensed for adolescents, but in the beginning, we will start off with primarily 18 and over. And then we'll work with some system partners to work with those individuals that may come in under the age of 18 looking for services. And that is us. Yeah, we're getting ready to launch in the next couple of weeks. Super excited. You guys probably have heard of the name Seneca. She does tons of outreach for us, lots of Narcan training. We just submitted for 2 grants for harm reduction focused supply. So our goal is to be out in the community as much as possible, doing Narcan training, handing out Narcan for individuals, whether it's clients or non-clients, just individuals that need it, may want it. We do a lot of street outreach right now where we're just kind of going to maybe homeless camps and offering services, food, and that additional Narcan training. But that's me and that's us. Very fortunate, like I said, to be out in Minnesota and looking forward to kind of put our name out there and offering tons of services for your community.
Hey, Sue, a question was, do you allow walk-in? And you're going to allow that, right?
And we only will do, we will schedule if the person needs to be scheduled, but our main point is walk-in, opiate treatment on demand. So we want people to be able to come in at any time, because like I said, if we send someone away and say, schedule an appointment, come back tomorrow, they may go out and continue to use, overdose, and possibly have fatality with that.
All right, thank you so much.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go, Jesse.
Jesus, this is Jesus.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So will you guys be offering Sublocade?
Yes, we'll do Sublocade, Vivitrol, Suboxone, and Methadone as well.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, folks. Helen, did you get your answer? I know your hand's up. Did you get your answer?
Oh, you're very welcome, Carmen.
Okay, I'm going to move
Mary
forward.
Sue, I have one other question that's in the chat that's been
Go
there
for
for a moment. I don't know if it's specific for Jesus or for anyone, but it's wondering what kinds of incentives there are to have someone go in for treatment.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of incentive, are we thinking like contingency management? Are we thinking there's a couple of different things, right? The incentive is always the individual being able to kind of own their recovery process, right? So when individuals come in for us, we let them drive what they want their recovery to look like. We're not looking for someone to come in and be completely abstinent the next day. We take harm reduction approach to everything. So we are trying to make sure it's as safe as possible for the individual when they come in for us. Methadone specifically, right? They may come in on a very low dose and continue to use. Our hope is that over time, they get on a therapeutic dosing regimen. We're talking about the trauma, we're talking about the counseling, the family issues, the mental health, all of that stuff. And the drug use continues to decrease. And then hopefully at some point it is completely absent. And then we can talk about what going back into the community looks like and kind of being completely free of that. But our mindset is just like, you wouldn't tell someone with high blood pressure, diabetes, hypertension that they cannot have their insulin, but they need to be off of it within a year, right? This is a lifelong disease for individuals. So the incentive is really up to the individual, and it looks different for every single person. Someone might come in because they are hoping to get custody of the kids back. They are hoping to bring their family back together, buy a home, go back in the community and get a job. So incentive looks different for everyone.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate this, Jesus. Can I see the next slide, Winnie? Because we have about a good half hour, which is entirely not enough time, but this is the prophecy, is that the ancestors want us to come together to solve solutions, to create solutions, solve problems, and heal together. I want Carmen to talk about why it's so important, how we do multicultural community work. And then we're going to move into a multicultural conversation that will again go just to kind of scrape the surface, but it's a good start. So Carmen, can you talk to us about this a little bit before we move into that section?
Absolutely. Thank you very much to everyone who presented. It's been a powerful conversation, and it's been enlightening. I've been working on this since 2019 when DHS supported the first Latino-based conference on opioids, and we continue to do these conversations. I invite you all for the September 28th, where we'll have a national voice. But the multicultural aspect of this is vital because our communities are so underserved and underrepresented. And I don't think it's done, with any kind of hatred in our hearts, or I think it's just lack of information. So being able to have a town hall conversation like this, and again, thank you, Mary Sue and the team, is a way that we, in a sense, invite you to our casa, mi casa, su casa, so you can get to know us, we can get to know you. And our next panel discussion is going to be very enlightening because we're going to be talking about multiculturalism and what does it look like, and how do we do it. And what I've learned these past few years, and through my own personal life history with my bilingual, monolingual Puerto Rican household from Brooklyn, New York, is that communication needs to be simple. We need to trust. So trust has to be established and relationships need to be developed across our cultures with youth and faith groups. We cannot omit that. We're cross-generational families, most households, and so we need to be inclusive of all of that. We need to remove barriers of access. For instance, in my own community, Latino, and I want to thank Jesus for bringing it up, our immigration status is a trauma that just keeps us lost. And forms can be very intimidating, very scary, because at some point, do we have to talk about the immigration? And do we have to expose ourselves? So I work with a lot of colleagues that are very, very determined and passionate about telling our community and building that trust so that they can fill out the form. We need to have a high follow through and being present. That's very critical. So if you're working with a community, for those of you who are providers out there, please follow up and be present when our community monolingual, multicultural households are visiting with you. It's important to have these cultural leaders in your meetings, and it's even more important to have them center their voices, to let them know they're being heard, and not just saying something so we can go fill out a form. Yes, I met with the community next, but rather to be able to build that trust. That's how you're going to build that trust. Also, we need to have a strong foundation on initiatives that are multicultural. So you need people from these multicultural communities to be the face of the initiative. It's very difficult to go into a community if you just are not part of that community. Again, it's all about the trust. For me, I like this rule of 7. It takes 7 times for our ears to hear and comprehend something, for us to be able to see something, that we can become familiarized with it. For example, Nike, the check. No smoking, the X with the cigarette, or the line with the cigarette. So multiple messages and multiple messengers over time consistently is very, very important. And we'll be visiting on the PSAs later on. Tiana, our educator and artist, because if we can develop those internal creative designs from the inside of the community out, then it has much more meaning. So Mary Sue, I hope that answered the questions and gave a little bit of insight into what multiculturalism looks like and what it is. And we welcome you to our casa with open hearts. So thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Carmen. Now we're just going to move into kind of a conversation with our multicultural leaders. Wendy, did you want to say something?
Before we go there, I just have a quick question from the chat. Glenda asks, and I think that this is for Carmen, how do we go into community without hurtful judgment?
Well, excellent question. Muchas gracias. Easy, simple. And I think my colleagues will agree with me. Be authentic. it's like we all have this instinct, and we can tell when we're accepted, when somebody wants something for us. Why are you being so nice to me? What do you want? You know, that's what Puerto Ricans will always say is el huevo quiere sal. Somebody wants something. So I think coming in authentic, we can easily, our communities will easily pick that up. Not being afraid to communicate with us. You don't have to know our language. You know, we have to know the main language, but it's okay. It's not about language. It's mostly about that human connection, that instinct, as Wendy was talking about earlier. Trust your instinct. And that goes the same with multicultural communities. We have to trust our instincts, be authentic, be welcoming, find someone. In my community, I love to find the lady at church who knows everybody and who knows everything. And usually that's the person that will hold my hand and will bring me into the community. It took me 4 years in my own community for families to start opening up and talking about substance use disorder. Before, they wouldn't have that conversation. Now, recently, since Cinco de Mayo, Paulina and I have been working hard on this. We find that they're talking, they want to talk. And Rosita, who's also here, hola Rosita, she has a family group, and I've been joining that group so that they can also trust me. And I'm in the community, but we still have to build that trust. And it's done by just being authentic, being yourself and following through, and just being a human being, I think would be the best answer. If anyone wants to chime in.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, right? It's like, you know, the number one reason why someone does not seek treatment, whether it is for SUD, OUD, mental health services, whatever it is stigma. There's a negative stigma around almost everything that's not picture perfect, right? So it's up to us, and all of us on here as leaders and people want to be involved with the community, is to create those safe places in the community, to remove that stigma, to educate individuals who may say, oh, you're just a methadone clinic. Oh, you're just this. Oh, you're just someone who uses fentanyl. What do you mean you didn't know you were taking fentanyl? Of course you did. How could you be that naive, right? It's educating those individuals who question you or who have some sort of negative feeling towards something. Because oftentimes what it comes down to is just those individuals not knowing the education piece behind it. And then for our clients, right, and for those that are suffering, it is that stigma. They are often afraid to start service, whatever it is, because of that stigma and those negative connotations that come with it. So I would say education is key on that, and making sure that we are never part of the stigma, more of just that breakdown barrier.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Carmen.
Well said. Gracias.
There's a question, JS6563. Go for it.
Hi, this is Lolita Ulloa, and I'm the opioid coordinator for Hennepin County.
Yeah.
I have two things to say. Hola, Carmen. I have two things to say. One is I genuinely believe that unless leadership is in the community, you're not going to get that trust for either yourself or your organization. And what I have seen over the years is that we've become very sophisticated of being advocates, but we have not gone to the community in a way that was genuine even 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. So we have a lot of people that work on our staffs, but that are not in the community. And even if we do have people that are working in our organizations, the leadership is not there. The other thing I would say about stigma is that the narrative has to change. It's a public health issue, and it's equity and health.
Yes.
And I think for those that are not, they don't buy into harm reduction and viewing it that way, I think that's one selling point, because the communication to bring everybody into it has to be brought through different communication lanes. And then the last thing I would say is that the Latino community in particular, at least from what I have seen since I've been doing this work, is not really good at like assisting or generating grants and submitting proposals. There's a ton of money out there right now from the federal settlement that the cities are getting, and every county is getting, and the state of Minnesota is getting as well. Everybody is dropping RFPs all over the place for a substantial amount of money that should be going to our community, the Latino community, and is not, because there are no proposals that are coming forward. So my takeaway from this conversation today is many things. Mostly it's writing down names of people who I'm going to contact to say, okay, you didn't submit a grant, but we have other contracted agencies that probably can provide exactly what you're asking for. So I think that's
has anybody ever spoke to a woman named Maria Issa? She's actually on one of the committees within St. Paul.
Yeah, she's my goddaughter. Yeah.
I love her. I love her. I love her. I love her. I spent my 25th birthday with her and a couple of her cousins, and they taught me how to play the bongos, but she is phenomenal. Like, I mean, she is so informational, and she's a very strong and powerful young woman. And I mean, maybe she could bring some stuff, you know, if we as a committee can't, maybe she could try to help, you know, get these funds available for the community.
the funds are available. It's the proposals that need to be submitted. For instance, I know Jesus Godinez talked about his community medical service. That's something that would be right up the alley of the RFP. We just dropped the RFP in Hennepin County. I hope you applied for funding. I don't think I saw it, but that's a perfect example of a lot of funding that is cross-cultural. That's the primary source of the federal agreement that the opioid settlements surround it. And we are not seeing a lot of Latinos seeking resources either from the state or the counties or cities.
Well, you know, we need to build partnerships too. It isn't, I'm a small LLC. And let me tell you, I have applied, even with my goddaughter and everybody that I know. And I'm in the history books in Minnesota, so I know Minnesota. And it's not that, you know, simply fill this out. It's not. It has to be a partnership, and it has to be a partnership that you can trust, that they don't just want to include you so that you access your community the way they want you to access your community, but rather the way that you know how to access your community.
Thank you both so much. I want to just move into a little bit more time to hear from some of our cultural providers. And I know, Miriam, you had a question and then you took your hand down. But, you know, Miriam has a lot of information to provide from an African-American perspective. Y has a lot of information to provide from the Hmong perspective. Ahmed has information to provide from the Somali perspective. Jesse, Jesus, Beverly, and Carmen from the Latino perspective, and Lar from the Karen perspective. Instead of going through all the questions that we prepared, because we're running out of time, I'm just going to ask each of you to make any kind of statement you'd like to make. Starting with Miriam, any thoughts you'd like to make? And then I'm going to move to Lar.
And this is a perfect segue, Mary Sue, actually, but I just wanted to highlight, you know, Carmen and the other previous presenters prior, where they had alluded the cross-cultural collaboration of organizations. I think it's key that we all network amongst each other to continue this conversation, to utilize each other's resources. You know, even me being here was a connection from another participant who knew Mary Sue and Carmen and brought me here. And then, you know, now I'm here, and then I'm, you know, utilizing my platform to expand with Carmen and Mary Sue and Wendy on different avenues. And just FYI, Wendy, your crisis kits were a topic of conversation today. I brought them up several times in a couple of our meetings. And so just to exactly, right? And so that's exactly how it works, right? One utilizes the other's network to really try to expand and grow. To go into your question, Mary Sue, so that I don't take up much time and to allow time for others, I just wanted to highlight not only in our Latino communities, but our African-American communities, as Elder Kate has had really pointedly mentioned. In our indigenous populations, we're really finding healthcare disparities are at a premium. We're talking mental or maternal health disparities. We're talking asthma exacerbations because living in urban settings. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about diabetes. I mean, these are all things that are prevalent in all of our communities. And what is really key, especially with an anchor hospital such as Children's, we're anchored in two cities primarily, right? Minneapolis and St. Paul. What does that mean? That means it's our obligation as an anchor institution to make sure that we're connecting with the community, not the other way around. Health literacy is imperative. We need to make sure that we're highlighting that the different things as utilizing primary treatment versus tertiary. What does that mean? That means that we're utilizing our clinics, our primary care providers, things of that nature, trying to try to keep at a healthy way versus having to be at a reactive stance and having to visit our emergency departments. If you're needing to visit our emergency departments, we welcome all, we turn away none. But we want you to be healthy as possible. And that means that we have to really do things like this town hall to get that message out there. And then on top of that, we need to work together, legislature, government, policies, bringing the kits to us at where I'm going to dispense it in the inpatient side, and Wendy's also delivering to the emergency departments to get that messaging to our families. And so this is a continuum. And as Mary Sue highlighted, she cannot do this on her own. So it's all of us needing to partner together to try to get this messaging across.
Oh, Miriam, thank you. Lar, if you could just add any kind of perspective from the Karen community that you want to bring forward, and then why, and then Ahmed. So let's start with Lar. Anything you want to add, Lar?
So like, how is this crisis affecting the Korean community?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say, just like you said earlier, this is like a pandemic. It is catching our youth one after another. Currently we're the KOM is partnering with Humboldt, so like I will mainly go to Humboldt to work with the students, but we still have Washington, we still have Como, we still have St. John, another like charter school that have a lot of Korean student population, and we have a very high number of like just students be on fentanyl. And RAMSEY data, like the RAMSEY correction data, also show that 70% of our youth who are in corrections, both in probation and detention, are like they have like substance use issues, mainly fentanyl and Percocet. And Percocet were laced with fentanyl, you know? It's like it's a huge issue that we need a lot of support on. We need more resources, we need more partners to help us fight it with this treatment, and we also need more organizations and you know, people in power, you know, in political power to help us find a way to prevent this, prevent this crisis from getting even bigger than now.
Very well said, Lar. Thank you so much. Ahmed, do you want to add anything from the Somali community, and then why?
Yeah, basically the Somali community, if we just look back into the culture, Somali community has really a very tough culture. When I say that, what I mean is that the young generation that came to United States, they are really struggling between the newly adopted home and the land where their parents came from. And East African parents are really steeped in a tradition and usually not aware of the drug problems. And this is because of the language barrier. All our adults, they don't speak the English language, so they are missing some of them, they even don't know what is Narcan. They don't even know what it is. Even if you bring it and say, this is a candy, they will take it as it is. Technically, whatever is written on it, if it's a danger or if it's whatever, they don't know.
So fentanyl on candy? I mean, it does taste pretty good though.
Okay, that's I'm not gonna.
So that is one of the major problems for our community.
What was that, Mary Sue?
When the parents find out later that their kids are using either drugs or alcohol, what happens that guilt and shame wash over them. They discourage their kids or their children from seeking help because of the fear of being rejected I mean, the whole family feels rejected from the rest of the other community, that they are stigmatized in the community. And then what happens is that the kids feel that he or she feels lonely, he feels homeless, hopeless. People feel that you are different from the community if you drink alcohol or if you use a drug. I mean, the community, your own family will feel like you are no longer with them. This builds a lot, so the community believes that there's no way that you can come back to us, and then the kid feels like, oh, that's it. The rest of your life, you are done. One of the things that I would really suggest, and I would say this is where I feel that, what do they need? This population feels underserved when it comes to alcohol and drug treatment, because they do not know how to ask for help. They lack of awareness and education about the treatment services available for them. It's important to be culturally sensitive by providing educational and material for this population. Some of the examples I would say, they believe the community leader or community faith leader, or someone, for example, a therapist that culturally understands what it is, or that can deliver the message as a culturally and as a religion-wise, as a perspective of religion-wise. It's also important to adjust the schedule. For example, if you are a therapist and you are delivering some sort of like a service, it is important to understand and work with the scheduling program to accommodate the time of their prayer, because we do have some time to pray during the day. So it is important also to adjust, adjust with the time that somebody can go to work and be part of their life.
Yes, thank you, Ahmed. Wow, that's so helpful. I wanted to have a little time to hear from Y. Anything you'd like to add from the Hmong community, Y?
Yes, speaking for the Hmong community, everything that Ahmed say is kind of like similar with the Hmong community, and one aspect with the Hmong community and how it affects in me. And I'm a person in long-term recovery, which it means that I've been using substance for the last 20-something years of my life, and overcome it and walking in that shoes. I understand and I feel and I know how they feel, or I know the people that are going through it, and right now in my community, how it feels. So a lot of the time in the Hmong community, as to my understanding and to what happens to me, is that when you start using these drugs, let's say any kind of drugs, and when your family, they found out, or when they know that you became a addicts or a user, they will actually shine you from them. They will push you away. They will not accept you, or they will not try to help you to find helps that you need, because they say that because of what you did, you're a disgrace to our family, to our clan. You are not a good representation for our family. And then what happened with that kind of aspect is it drives you farther to mental illness, to depressions, and you can't get your life right. And that's when you turn into these hard drugs to cope with your mental health issues. So that I'm speaking for myself, because that's what happened with me too. And I know how it works. But now that I overcome with that part, going through treatments, yes, treatment is easy. Treatment, it's easy. You go in there, you get detox, you go through the process, learn how to use the tools they provide for you. But like me and my organization, what we do now at Minnesota Recovery Connection, it's called, certified recovery peer support specialist. So that's where my field is at. That's where I come in. And this is what I help with the people that are coming out of treatments, coming out of jail, prison, anything that, is going to keep them sober. Because like I believe myself that sometimes all it takes is that one simple phone call to check on somebody and say, hey, how's your day? How you doing? How's your sobriety going? Is there anything that you want to talk to me about? That's what makes it important. It's the after part of treatment, what the after part of coming out of jail, what the after part, of being shined away from your culture and family, just knowing that somebody is there that care or have that understanding of what you're going through.
Beautiful. Why, thank you so much. Yeah, that's the whole kind of the theme that we had starting from the beginning, is holding on to each other, holding on to our kids. And even if they've been through treatment and that aftercare, checking in, even if we're being pushed away. Thank you so much. Do you want to say more about MRC too?
You know, what we do is reach out to people with or without or with health insurance. We still provide, you know, services for them for the aftercare parts, because a lot of time coming out of treatments, coming out of jail or prison or anything of that kind of settings, they give you a release plan of like, oh, okay, this is your church, this is your AA group, this is what you need to do. But who is going to walk with you along that journey? Who is going to help you to fill out this application? Who is going to take you there? Who is going to give you that ride? Who is going to give you the once weekly check-in and see how you're doing? So that's where MRCs come in, and that's where I come in as a coach and help these females and males and people that are coming out of these settings back and transition their life into normal as best as they can. And we do believe in all, you know, harm reductions and all of that. So any pathway, to me, as long as, you know, it works for you, it might not work for the other person, because, you know, God created us unique and each individual. So we have to find what works for us. Just because it works for the other individual, it might not work for you. So it's really up to you to find yourself of what works for you. Don't let other people, don't let even your counselor or your family contradict you from succeed your recovery.
Beautiful, Why. Thank you so much. And I think someone put it, the MRC address, the website in the chat. That's perfect. And the last thing I just want to hear from the Latino community, Carmen, Jesse, Jesus, Beverly, what would you want to add? And then we're going to move into kind of next steps. Everyone, you've been phenomenally patient, and this has been such a impactful conversation. I'm grateful for all of you. Who wants to talk from the Latino perspective? Anybody?
I yield my chair to my colleagues.
Okay.
So that I can learn some more from them.
Beautiful.
So, please.
So I'd be happy to say something, but if there are any other Latinos or Latinas that want to speak up, please do so.
If I may, we have the director, our new executive director at the Minnesota Recovery Center, Cynthia, just joined us. And Cynthia, por favor, usted puede decir algo.
Absolutely. Por supuesto. Buenas tardes. Hello. ¿Cómo están? How are you? I am so excited to be here, to have been invited by Carmen, the first Latina executive director for a recovery community organization here in the Twin Cities. So I'm super excited about that, leading the charge. Yang Moa, one of our team members, and Caddy, who provided the web address, another one of our team members. I'm delighted to be here with you, and I've enjoyed. Thank you, Shirley, for the introductions, for the prayer, and all of you that provided this excellent information throughout this program. So I'm excited to be part of this organization and to be leading the charge in our recovery space. And I'm also a woman in long-term recovery. I've been sober now for 10 years.
Excellent.
And yes, so I have lived experience in homelessness, drug use, and alcohol use. And so, yeah.
And there's our hope. There's our hope, Cynthia.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Anybody else want to add a Latino perspective to everything we've been talking about? Anything else that's just really needs to be said in this space with our community?
Well, I'd like to invite.
I want to chime in, because I think that it's so important that we remember that we are individuals. And I just heard that from Yang. He made that comment about we're all different and we don't treat each other the same.
Yes.
And I know that working out of the syringe exchange in St. Paul, when I start seeing Latinos come to the door, they appreciated seeing a person of their ethnicity on the other side, because eventually they would ask me, how did you do it? Developing those relationships. So eventually you're there for them to take that next step, to get into treatment, to do the assessment, whatever it takes. But it takes a person to be on the street, to be committed, and be a voice that at least represents somebody that looks like me. And that helped me get into recovery as well.
So guys, we're going to now move into next steps. We just want you to know a little bit about what's happening now as a next step. We're going to have Tiana talk about the public service announcement work that we're doing, and then Carmen talk about the September 28th event. Remember, this is an ongoing conversation. We're holding each other through this whole thing. So Tiana, can you talk, please?
Hi, everybody. My name is Tiana Gross. I am a community healer. I'm a social justice theater teacher in Minneapolis Public Schools. And I just wanted to talk to you all about this event or this opportunity that we have for youth. We are hoping to create a beautiful piece of art, artistic piece, to serve as a public service announcement for fentanyl use and what's going on in our communities. We are trying to get youth involved into this campaign in order to just hear from our youth and have youth voice within our public service announcement. We think it's really important for the community to be informed, and to hear from young people is a great way to inform community and cause impact. And we want to be able to hone in on young people's artistic abilities. And like I said, I teach theater, spoken word poetry. If art wants to be involved, we really just want to hear from the young people. So if you know any youth that are interested in doing some social justice work, we invite you to have them sign up. I believe on the screen right now is the registration link and a QR code for you to connect with us. And we hope to have some young people sign up so they can be part of this opportunity. Thanks, everybody.
Beautiful. Thanks, Tiana. And then Carmen, do you want to talk about September 28th?
Yes, so September 28th, that's during the month of Hispanic Heritage Month, but it's also Recovery Month. And so it's a very powerful month to put this information out. And so our September 28th show, we're going to have a hybrid, I believe is what it's called.
Yep.
Yes, with the St. Paul Neighborhood Network public TV station. Their offices, studios are located on Vandalia off of University Avenue. And then we'll also have, that'll be in person, but we'll also have virtual. My colleague from the Opioid Response Network, Dr. Hector Colo Rivera, is a national speaker and medical doctor. He's also a psychiatrist, and he's one of the technical advisors with ORN, the Opioid Response Network, and has been mine and Paulina's mentor and technical assistant since 2019. We're also going to reach out for national voices with the Drug Enforcement Administration so that we can learn a little bit about what's happening from the top down. And it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to launch and debut our youth project that Diana was just talking about. Right. And so please put that on your calendars. And if you can join us in person, the studio is a beautiful facility. We have a new executive director there, Javier Vasquez, and he is excited to bring all these multicultural voices together. So it's an opportunity to take our voices into the community through public TV. And we're taping this show, and we're going to have Spin help edit it so we can take all these really important sound bites and put them out there so that we can share with our communities. Great. So I think that's about it on my end.
Thank you, Carmen. Oh, I just wanted to tell you guys that after every one of these town halls, Carmen and Paulina create a beautiful newsletter that summarizes everything that we learned. So you as ambassadors can get the word out to everyone you know. And then me and Wendy, we put everything we learn on our websites. So those are our web links. And we put everything, I have a resource directory that I put this information on, and Wendy puts it on her bulletin board. Wendy, next slide. That will also be in the newsletter. And so will the links to the PSA. We'll get this out to you all as soon as we can. And the last thing is, if any of you know of funding and resources so that we can have, after the summer, the next 3 town hall conversations and the next 3, we have got to continue this work, continue these conversations, because this is very similar to the pandemic and people are dying. So we have to work together to help that end.
We've talked a lot about fentanyl tonight, and I want to just highlight the idea of the fake pills. Please go on to both of our bulletin boards or websites and find more information about this. I can't say enough that kids aren't necessarily typing the word fentanyl right into Google. They're not like, I want to do fentanyl necessarily. Yes. Sometimes kids who overuse their Adderall. Talking to some of the families that I know that we invited tonight who have kids who have mental health disorders, and maybe they have Adderall at home. They've overused it for whatever reason. They're looking for more. They're going to look out. They're looking for more Adderall online too, on social media. They're not getting Adderall. What they're getting is a pressed pill that looks just like Adderall, and it has fentanyl in it. So that's what a fake pill is. They're going to think that it looks exactly like OxyContin. It looks exactly like Xanax or Adderall. It's not. So I just wanted to highlight that and make sure that everybody kind of understood that piece too.
Yes, we definitely want to give a shout out and thank to all the partners. And in this particular show, our partners are listed here. And we'd like to thank our presenters, of course, Jessie Saavedra, Lar, Miriam Rody, Wendy Goodman, Sergeant Beverly Rodriguez, Jesus, and Elder Shirley. We also want to thank our cultural leaders, Ahmed, Lar, Yang, Jesus, Francisco Ramirez, although I'm not sure if we heard from him, but I did see a chat. And of course, Miriam, our interpreters, Paulina Lopez Valencia, Spanish, Naomi Yang, Hmong, Marie He, Corinne, and Omar Samali. So thank you very, very, very much. And may I also give a shout out to Lauren Williams, and of course to Izzy, and to our viewers who came in and spent this beautiful August evening with us with this very, very difficult conversation, but that's how we start change. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Now, you guys, we're going to have you listen to this song, but this is our way of saying goodbye to each other. Please put your prayers, the work you are doing, the hope you have for our community in the chat while we listen to a song that brings us a reminder of our own power to have joy and love in our heart and to unite together to address this issue. So here goes the song. Please put anything you want to in the chat, and we will take that all to heart. Thanks, everybody.
Joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. Oh, this strength that I have, this strength that I have, this strength that I have. Oh, yeah, now. The world didn't give it to me. World didn't give it to me. This strength that I have. Oh, yeah. The world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it to me. This strength that I have. Oh, yeah. The world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. Oh, this love that I have. This love that I have. Oh, yeah, now. The world didn't give it to me. World didn't give it to me. This love that I have. Oh, yeah, the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that this love that I have, yeah, the world didn't give it to me. Singing, the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. Oh, this pride that I have, this pride that I have, this pride that I have. Oh, yeah, now. The world didn't give it to me. World didn't give it to me. This pride that I have. said the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that this pride that I have, yeah, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. All this peace that I have, oh, yeah. The world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give me my peace that I have. Oh yeah, now. The world didn't give it to me. Won't you sing about peace? This peace that I have. Oh yeah, now. The world didn't give it to me. I said the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. All this joy that I have, this joy that I have. This joy that I have. Oh yeah, now. The world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it to me. This joy I said the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world